Hello everyone. This story is about, what if Naruto was raised by the ANBU and fall in love with Ino? He is very strong and smart, being a fuinjutsu genius and trained by the ANBU commander Ryo. Please like, share and subscribe for more amazing stories like this one. Now let's start. ANBU commander Ryo's personal training ground had been flooded, covered from end to end in waist-deep water. It nearly exhausted the chakra reserves of several new recruits, but they managed to terraform the area without much trouble. The rocky dirt field had been transformed into a small lake, complete with jagged rocks protruding the surface, and sharp cliffs lining the edges along the walls, courtesy of the commander's own dotonjutsu. Everything was underwater, and if anyone had to do anything on the surface, be it stand, sit, or kneel, it would have to be done on water. "You're slowing down, Chibi." Naruto grunted in response, forcing his legs to their limits. "Sorry, Commander." The boy's legs were shaking and his whole person trembled, but he stood strong on the surface and ran. It had been 2 days since he applied the resistance seals to his body, numbering a total of 21, and he had since increased the pressure twice. His entire body, every major muscle group, was now under precise amounts of controlled pressure, designed to hinder his natural and most common movements. It had proven to be extremely effective. It became quickly apparent that Naruto healed much quicker than the normal person. Even by Uzumaki standards, the recovery time of Naruto's energy, chakra, stamina, and physical body was incredible. Strained or even pulled muscles healed within minutes, he could regain most of his energy within minutes of a small meal. His stamina suffered, but had never run out. And he'd never been close to putting a dent in his chakra reserves. Ryu had doubled Naruto's training intensity. The boy needed almost no rest, and because of his healing factor, physical gains were seen almost instantly. With this training, Naruto could maintain his absolute physical peak indefinitely, and could possibly promote faster growth. He was already taller than most other kids his age, but Ryu could see his student starting puberty in only another year or two. "Only one more lap," called out the commander, "you're almost finished." The boy stared at the finish line, where 7 of his clones were waiting for him. They had no use for resistance seals and were only focused on maintaining and improving chakra control, so they had finished much faster than the original. Naruto managed one more push and made it back to his teacher. "Finished, Commander." Ryu nodded, his arms crossed. "Good work, Chibi." He watched as the boy stand on quivering knees. "Are you well enough to disperse your clones?" Naruto huffed as he nodded, "Yes, sir." He made a hand sign and grinned at his clones, who all stared back at him in pity. They all shared the same memories, and they all knew how much exhaustion would be returning to the original. With a quick flare of chakra, Naruto cancelled his jutsu and the 7 boys vanished with puffs of smoke. He rested his hands on his knees and braced himself. "Ugh," he groaned, his head pulsing and his vision darkening, but he had grown used to such sensations. "This one isn't too bad, not nearly as bad as the first time." He felt his heart race against his chest, trying to pump as much oxygen as possible through his bloodstream, and slowly. He felt his breathing calm. "I think I'm getting the hang of this." "Have you adjusted to your new memories?" He nodded, "Yes," he replied with a pant. "It's much easier to process if the clones were all doing the same thing. They were all just running laps on water, nothing too confusing." He managed to straighten his back, to stand upright. "The other 5 are much harder to deal with. They're all reading different books on different subjects. I don't think I can pop all of them at once. I'll do those one at a time in 1-minute intervals." "Very well," commended the commander, "I trust your judgment." "Thank you, sir." "In 2 days, your 7 clones here have collectively ran on water for approximately 168 hours. Your chakra control has improved significantly and will now be able to conduct battle scenarios and drills on water. That will be your task on Monday." Naruto nodded, his legs still shaking, but healing. "While you continue with your physical conditioning, your clones will be conducting precise movement drills or battles on the water surface. It will be much more difficult than this week's training." The boy almost grimaced, but knew better. "Take the next 2 days to rest. I believe you have other arrangements made already." Naruto smiled, "Yes, sir." His legs had stopped shaking and he was standing firm. "I made plans to meet with Ino-chan again for both days." "Good," Ryu muttered, "your social skills are just as important as your combat skills. Be sure to be on your best behavior and remember that your mission regarding young Yamanaka-san is still ongoing." 21 smiles, the boy said with a grin. Ino-chan smiled at me 21 times on Wednesday. I will aim for even more this weekend. The commander nodded. I also expect you to put your reading to good use. Yes, sir. Naruto's breathing returned to normal. I've read and fully comprehended the Gentleman's Guide to Etiquette, the Fine Art of Manliness, and How to Be a Gentleman. Telltale Signs of the Human Body was interesting, and while they were highly recommended by Kokenai and Koenai, I still struggle to understand the concepts taught in Gentleman's Guide to Getting Lucky and Oral Warfare. That is to be expected, muttered Ryu. Those two books were added after the fact as outliers. We did not expect you to fully grasp the lessons within, but as you mature and grow, they should naturally come to you. Just remember the words and they will make sense in the future. The boy saluted, his body recovering. Understood, Commander. Now, we will end our training here today. Naruto's eyes brightened, but Ryu stopped him. No, this doesn't not involve your new friend. The boy pouted and stayed silent. Hokage-sama has requested your presence. He will meet with you in the playroom. Permission to go now? Asked the boy. Granted. It had been a while since Naruto had been to his playroom. Ever since he was allowed to train as an actual ninja, he felt no need to play with his old toy kunai and katana. But ever since he could remember, Naruto also associated the playroom with his Ji-chan. Some of his fondest memories as a child were playing with the Hokage, sparring with him with foam swords and pelting him with rubber shuriken. Ji-chan was younger then and could take some hits, but recently Naruto had started to worry about his beloved grandfather's health. Ji-chan. Naruto ran into the room with a grin, finding his grandfather sitting on one of many beanbag chairs. He quickly gave the old man a hug, welcoming his warmth. His Ji-chan felt thinner now, and the boy noticed that he was not much shorter than the old man anymore. How are you feeling, Naruto? The Hokage asked as the boy pulled away, jumping to the next beanbag chair. Is your new training regimen too much? Not at all, he replied with his grin. I do get tired a lot during training, but I feel fine after some rest. Commander said that I recover very quickly, so no matter how tired I am during the intense moments, as long as I don't push too hard, I should be fine. You do your Uzumaki ancestry proud, my boy. Thanks, Ji-chan. The Hokage smiled at the boy. Now, I do have something to discuss with you today. At his tone, Naruto sat upright. We've come to a milestone in your life, Naruto. You are growing as a shinobi and as a person. Not only will you continue to develop your skills with Commander Ryu, you will also start to socially interact with others your age. Naruto nodded. I am very happy that you've made a friend so quickly. I have met little Miss Ino-chan a few times before, and she seems like a very nice girl. Naruto gave a small smile and nodded. She is, Ji-chan. Ino-chan is amazing. The old chuckled at the boy. I'm sure she is. But now that you are starting to interact with people outside of the ANBU, I feel I must go over a few ground rules with you regarding certain sensitive subjects. Such as, asked the boy confused. Such as your parents. The Hokage sighed. As much as I want to give you your father's name right now, it is still too early. So for now, I only want you to use the Uzumaki name, and when people ask you about your parents, tell them that you don't know who they were. The boy nodded in understanding. Same with your skills as a shinobi. I am very proud that you have progressed so quickly, but I need you to keep most of your skills secret. You may show some basic knowledge in jutsu, but keep the more advanced of your arsenal to yourself. I understand. Which brings us to your future as a shinobi. Naruto sat taller, excited. To be honest with you, you are already skilled enough to be a genin. The boy's eyes widened. You already know everything the academy is required to teach, and your physical capabilities and chakra control are already beyond those of the average genin. And your chakra capacity and potency is beyond that of all jonin in the village. But at this point, it is more important for you to focus on building a strong foundation for yourself. Becoming genin right now will only hinder your training with Commander Ryu. For the foreseeable future, we will focus on your training and developing your ninjutsu and taijutsu. I'm okay with that, Ji-chan. I love training with the commander, and I need to get stronger if I'm ever going to be Hokage. The Sandaime smiled. That's right. He patted the boy's head. But this doesn't mean you'll never join the regular forces. No matter how strong you are, you will need real-world experience. You also need to learn to work with other people and learn about teamwork. Naruto nodded along. Commander Ryu and I have decided that we will focus on your training until you turn 12 years old, at which point you will be promoted to genin and join your own team with others your age. Naruto's eyes widened. Does this mean I could be on the same team as Ino-chan? With a chuckle, the Hokage shook his head, not likely. Ino-chan is the heiress of the Yamanaka clan, and she will be expected to continue the tradition of being on the same team as the Nara heir and the Akimichi heir, both of whom are also your age. The Ino-Shikicho have been working together for generations. I'm sure you've learned about them by now. Yes, I have. Naruto recalled reading about them with Kaka and I guess I never connected the thought that one of them is actually Ino-chan's father. He smiled. Wow. Ino-chan's father must be really strong, huh? In certain fields, he is Konoha's foremost expert. If you ever meet him, be on your best behavior. You would be talking to one of the living heroes of the village. I will, Ji-chan. Placing a hand on Naruto's shoulder, the old man continued. When you become a genin, you will likely be far stronger than your peers. It's possible you may even match the skills of your jonin sensei. This means I won't expect you to be a genin for long. But during that time, your goal would be to amass as much real-world combat experience as possible, along with learning about teamwork and the intrigue of enemy ninja. There is only so much we can teach without experiencing the real thing. Knowledge can be taught, but instinct can only be honed by experience. I'll work as hard as I can, Ji-chan. I know you will, Naruto. The old man stood with a groan. Now, how about you join your grandfather for some dinner? Naruto grinned. Sure. I'm starving. It was finally the weekend, and Naruto would soon see his best friend again. It was remarkable to the young boy that his perspective on his schedule could change so much in such little time. A mere week ago, training so intensely in his new training program would undoubtedly be the highlight of his week. He could still remember dreading his weekend breaks. He'd much rather train and sweat than to lounge around doing nothing. But now, he'd felt elated about training being over, because now the weekend would let him see his first friend. Ino-chan. Naruto-kun. Her smile was beautiful, it was bright and vibrant and lit up the world. He loved it and everything about it, how her eyes would seemingly disappear with her grin, how her lips would widen before letting out a cute giggle, and most importantly, how easily he brought it out of her. Smile number 22. It was another beautiful Saturday, and once again the park was crowded, but Naruto no longer felt uncomfortable. Perhaps he'd grown used to it, but he knew that it was because with her there, he couldn't really see any other people anyway. His eyes refused to look away from her, even when his racing heart demanded him to, but she was too radiant. Dressed in a pink sundress with her golden hair blowing freely in the wind, Naruto could only stare as she ran toward him. It was almost blinding when she reached him, but his brain quickly went into overdrive when she grabbed his hand and pulled him along. We have to escape, Naruto-kun. Huh, asked Naruto as his body automatically listened to her. Why, he asked again, already running next to her. Ask questions later. Ino glanced back at him and he felt weak at the knees. Just get us out of here. Hi. With a burst of speed, Naruto scooped Ino into his arms again. Channeling chakra to his feet, he pushed off the ground, vanishing in a blur. The pair was a golden blur, zipping through the park and in between people, leaving only glimpses of yellow behind as they escaped through the shadows of lounging parents and racing children. It was long before they reached the trees and vanished into the thick canopy. 5 seconds, it took too long. Naruto knew having Ino in his arms would slow him down a little, but not a 3-second delay. Perhaps he had adjusted his resistance seals a tad too much. His body had healed after his week of training and he already felt a bit too light, so he had increased the seal pressure the previous night. Naruto cursed himself inwardly. Had he known Ino would need his speed, he'd had removed the seal for her. Sorry, Ino-chan, he whispered, finally looking down at the girl in his arms. I'm slower than usual today. He saw Ino looking up at him in awe. That was slow? She blinked and looked around, seemingly realizing where they were hiding. I've never moved that fast ever. I didn't even know people could move this fast. Are we in a tree? How did you even get up here? No, this is quite normal. Naruto shrugged. I can move faster than this on better days, and most of my siblings are still faster than me. You should see my sensei and Ji-chan. I can't even see them move when they run. Really? Asked the girl. How is that possible? Training, I guess. He grinned at her. One day, I'll be just as fast as them. Give me a few years, and I'll show you. Ino tightened her arms around his neck. Sure, I'd love that. Now, are we far enough? What are we hiding from? Asked the boy, stretching his senses out, but not finding anything out of the ordinary. I can get us deeper into the forest if you want. I don't even know where we are exactly, so I don't know, she whispered back, her breath tickling his cheek. Maybe we should just stay here for a bit. He fought off his blush and nodded, feeling his hair brush against hers. Sure, that's fine with me. He smiled again. You're still so light. I can hold you like this forever. Even under the shade of the thick leaves, Ino's face burned red. According to telltale signs of the human body, flushing of the cheeks could mean more than heat. It could also mean stress or embarrassment. Naruto saw no reason for the angel in his arms to feel any sort of embarrassment, so it must have been stress. Perhaps whatever they were hiding from was deeply concerning to her. Forever, she whispered, breaking him out of his thoughts. You promise? Huh, he pondered her words and gauged her weight before he grinned. Sure, if you want, I'll hold you like this forever. I promise. Ino was barely a fifth of the weight of his strongest resistance seal, so accounting for his healing factor and fast recovery, he had a reasonable chance of being able to never set her down. And you're really warm, too, he muttered softly, a blush returning to his cheeks. It feels nice when I hold you like this. I'll hold you to your words, she muttered, her cheeks like a tomato. I always keep my promises, Ino-chan. He was concerned about her burning cheeks, meaning her stress. And don't worry. You don't have to be stressed. I'm here so I'll protect you from anything. Ino hugged him tighter. Then let's just stay here for the rest of the day. Her head was resting on his shoulder as she looked up at him, and her eyes were so close to his. They were so blue and sparkly. His heart was punching his chest as his whole body tingled. He had never felt so odd in his entire life. He felt happy, his whole body felt elevated, like it was floating in air. He felt exhilarated, he felt like his future had been shown to him and he was excited to savor every second. It was like his soul was fluttering and he could barely whisper a sound, but he felt he had to speak his mind. If you want, he managed between shaky breaths, we can even stay here forever. She tightened her arms around him again, staring up into his eyes. I'd love to. They stared at each other, unmoving, content. Never had they experienced such confusing emotions. It felt relaxing, but also exhilarating, it felt important, but also surreal, they felt incredibly happy, but also afraid and anxious. It was complicated and beyond their understanding, but they had all day and possibly the rest of their life in that tree to figure out everything, so they just settled in the growing silence. Isn't this sweet? A booming voice came from behind. Years of ANBU training and conditioning returned to the boy's enamored mind and flooded his body with adrenaline. His eyes hardened, losing their sparkle, replaced with a sharp glare. This was someone who evaded his sensory abilities and even managed to reach his back. All this with Ino-chan still in his arms, it was a failure of unforgivable proportions. He pulled Ino close to his chest, his arms hugging her protectively as her head hid against his neck. She was fully protected by his body before he moved. Channeling chakra into his right heel, he spun with his left leg, slicing the space behind him with a swift kick, his piercing blue eyes searching for his enemy. But his kick was stopped with a grunt of pain. Damn, kid. You're strong. A man stood before him, towered over him. He had long sandy blonde hair tied into a long ponytail, a stern face with a strong jaw, and pale blue eyes that he recognized immediately. The man was not wearing the standard uniform of the Analysis and Interrogation Corp, but Naruto knew who he was. Yamanaka Inoichi, Jonin of Konoha, and one of the legendary Ino Shikacho. Naruto's eyes widened and quickly withdrew his leg. I'm sorry. I thought you were an enemy. He is the enemy, cried Ino, who was still burning red, as she pointed at the man. Let's run away, Naruto-kun. But, the boy muttered, staring up at the clearly amused man. Isn't he your father? He's still the enemy. Inoichi chuckled, you recognize me? Yes, sir, Naruto awkwardly bowed to the man, still holding onto a burning Ino. My Ji-chan told me stories about your legendary team. I've seen you in my reference books and lessons. Sorry for attacking you. The Jonin laughed and patted Naruto's head, ruffling his hair. No need to apologize. You were just protecting my daughter. Inoichi knelt down to Naruto's height. I'm impressed. You suppressed your chakra very well, and if it wasn't for my daughter, I don't think I would have been able to track you so quickly. And even in your suppressed state, I felt you trying to sense my presence. That is some advanced chakra control for someone your age. Thank you, sir. Naruto stared at the man before glancing at Ino, who was glaring at her father. But, if I may ask, the man nodded, chuckling again. Is there something we can do for you? Yes. Inoichi patted the boy's head again. I'm sorry to break up your little playdate, but Ino's mother and I, and our family friends, prepared a picnic. Why don't you both come down and join us? A picnic? Asked Naruto, glancing at Ino again, who just huffed at her dad. It has been a long time since we've had a nice family outing, and I really wanted to meet this new friend my daughter keeps talking about. Ino almost glowed red. Tuchan, shut up. Me? Yes, you. Inoichi smiled at him. It's very nice to meet you, Naruto. His tone reminded Naruto a lot of Kakenai and his Jichan. It's very nice to meet you, too, Yamanaka-san. The man smiled. You're my daughter's friend, so just call me Inoichi Ajizan. Okay, sure. The man looked at Naruto expectantly. Inoichi Ajizan. Now, come on. Inoichi stood and gestured to the park. My friend prepared a lot of food, so let's go get some before it gets cold. Naruto blankly nodded, but Ino grunted and crossed her arms. Still in her friend's strong arms. Princess, stop pouting. You can play with Naruto all you want after lunch. Fine, she muttered with a pout. Is Shikamaru and Choji here, too? Of course, they are. Ino groaned. I'm sorry, Naruto-kun. With a huge frown, she dropped her feet to the solid branch and stood from Naruto's arms. I better jump down myself. Those two can be really annoying and nosy. I don't want them to ask you too many questions. Who? Asked Naruto. Just children of my parents' friends. Ino pouted and turned from her amused father. You don't have to talk to them if you don't want to. Now, Inoichi started. I'm sure Naruto wouldn't mind meeting some new friends. He smiled at Naruto again. I'm sure you'll be quick friends with Shikamaru and Choji as well. They grew up together with Ino, they're basically like siblings. Oh. Naruto said with nod, I get it now. Just like me, and my older siblings. Yes, exactly. Inoichi rubbed his daughter's head. Now, let's go. We don't want to be rude. They jumped from the tree, landing softly on the ground, but Naruto still held onto Ino's arm, afraid she'd hurt herself. She smiled at him and he felt his heart race again, but quickly followed along as Inoichi started to make his way through the large field. Naruto had been to this park many times by now, but it was the first time walking through it with someone's parent. It was an odd feeling, but knowing that it was Ino's father made it simpler to accept. From a distance Naruto could see where Inoichi was headed, and it was a huge picnic blanket, at least triple the size of all the other normal ones around the park. He had only expected a few people, but there were 7 people sitting around the food. 2 of them were clearly kids around his age, which he assumed were Ino's childhood friends. The adults he couldn't really see, but as he approached, he quickly figured them out. Being close family friends with the Yamanaka clan was already a big clue, and now seeing the huge man in front of them, it was only logical. It was the legendary Ino Shikacho in the flesh, having a picnic. We're here. Inoichi called out as the group turned to see them approaching. Ino didn't get far. Naruto felt everyone's eyes look at him. The 2 kids around his age looked at him curiously, which was normal, but the adults were different. The 3 ladies stared at him with slightly slacked jaws, a bodily response that Naruto was unfamiliar with. Recalling his recent reading material, it could indicate surprise. Was it really so surprising that Ino met a new friend? Naruto needed more information before making any conclusions. Naruto, started Inoichi, breaking Naruto from his thoughts. Let me introduce. Naruto looked at the group. This is Nara Shikaku, said the Yamanaka. I'm sure you recognize him if you recognized me. Beside him is his wife, Nara Yoshino, and the little one is Shikamaru. He is the same age as you. This was the Jonin commander, the infamous Nara clan head. Naruto had heard so many stories about him, and Ji-chan had only ever said good things about him. But he looked much more normal than Naruto expected. The man had smiled at him like Inoichi had. And it seemed that the lady had broken out of her surprise of Ino meeting a new friend, because she also smiled at him. She looked very kind and nice. This is Akimichi Chiza, the Akimichi clan head. His wife, Akimichi Shuko, and his son, Akimichi Choji, who is also the same age as you. Inoichi chuckled, they're the ones who brought all this food. As you can see, it's basically a feast. Naruto knew Toruwanai was an Akimichi, and he now knew everyone in his clan must look similar to each other. Their clan head was the biggest man Naruto had ever met in his life, so his strength must be unimaginable. He had studied the caloric chakra boost of the Akimichi, and it looks as though both the clan head and his wife were extremely powerful. Their son was a bit on the heavy side, but not overly so. It seemed Choji still had much more eating to do before catching up to his parents' power. And this is my lovely wife, Yamanaka Imiko, Ino's mother. Naruto clearly saw Ino's face in her mother's, she was beautiful, too. But unlike the other two ladies, who had been happily smiling at him, Imiko looked almost in tears. Perhaps it was just allergies, because she soon smiled brightly, one that looked quite similar to Ino's, and wiped her tears away. With a quick exhale, Naruto bowed to the group. My name is Uzumaki Naruto, he managed as polite as possible, it's a pleasure to meet you all. They all smiled at him, one smile wider than the other, but Imiko stood up and approached him. She was looking at him with an unexplainable familiarity, and Naruto was baffled. His new books held no insight into such a reaction, but he was fine with it. Her smile made him feel warm and cozy, it reminded him of his sisters. It's nice to finally meet you, Naruto-chan. She hugged him tightly, and he heard her sniffle. Her allergies must be back, but no matter. Her hug was warm and loving, so the boy returned the hug. Thank you, Imiko Obasan. She sniffled again and choked up a little, probably holding back a sneeze. Naruto reminded himself to seal some allergy medication for the nice lady, she was nice, and he didn't want her to feel sick. Ugh, Ka-chan, stop hugging Naruto-kun already. Ino looked mad at something. Doesn't she know? Allergy symptoms are not contagious. Naruto-chan, don't be shy, Imiko encouraged as she filled the boy's plate with yet another onigiri. Eat more. You're a growing boy. Naruto bowed his head in thanks, thank you, Imiko Obasan. Having grown up in the ANBU barracks, Naruto had his own experience with eating in odd situations. The few times he was allowed to watch the new recruits run their drills, he had joined them in eating while standing upside down, their feet attached to the ceiling. But that meal had only been bland food pills. He had shared a watermelon with some of his sisters, which they had sliced with their blades, while they all bathed in the hot springs. He had even shared some soba with Commander Ryu while they watched new recruits prepare their training field. He had even glimpsed at the bottom of Ryu's face. But this was his first time eating while sitting on the ground with 8 pairs of eyes staring at him. There were hundreds of people around them in the park, but for some reason, the Ino Shikacho families found him the most interesting. Naruto gulped as he bit into honestly the tastiest onigiri he had ever had in his life, but he could barely chew under such intense pressure. Why were they staring at him? Did he look weird? Did he sit weirdly or eat weirdly? Was there something on his face? He wanted to check, but he didn't want to look even weirder. Hey! Ino's voice sliced through the silence, stop staring at Naruto-kun. They all stammered and scrambled to look away, returning to their food. Naruto silently sighed in relief and looked to Ino, his hero, who was still glaring at her family and friends. She edged herself closer to him, as if protecting him from her family. Her wonderful flowery scent flooded his senses again and he had to suppress another blush. He looked down at his food, but could feel the adults looking at him again, perhaps catching his blush. This is really good, he managed through a small smile, I've never had this kind of pork filling before. Chiza gave a hearty laugh and it instantly eased Naruto's shoulders. Thank you, young man. It's an old family recipe. The famous Akimichi garlic pork onigiri. The big man passed Naruto an entire plate of new food, filled with all kinds of fried meats and skewers he had never seen before. If you like those, you'd love these, too. Give them a try. Naruto took the plate with both hands, thank you, Aji-san, he muttered as Chiza grinned, this is a lot of food. It's normal for a young man to eat a lot. The Akimichi leader patted his son's head, my son here eats almost as much as me. Naruto saw the boy his age blush and look away, muttering, only on some days, Tuchan. You eat even more some days, muttered Ino softly, pouting her lips as she nibbled on her own onigiri. Feeling Ino's presence beside him calmed Naruto, and he was at least able to focus on his food. It was indeed very good, as expected of the Akimichi clan, but as much as he was enjoying himself, he could still feel the adults staring at him. It wasn't as obvious as before, but they were all glancing at him every few seconds, as if they were observing him. Perhaps it was a test, and they were somehow gauging his senses or awareness. Commander Ryu had conducted surprise tests in similar situations before, but he had never been so obvious. These were the members of the Ino Shikacho, they wouldn't waste their time just testing him. There must be a bigger purpose behind this meeting, and Naruto wanted to find out. So, Naruto, came the voice of Inoichi, friendly and casual. Ino tells me that you are being trained at home. How is that going so far? Naruto sat up taller. Very good, Aji-san. He cleared his throat. My Ji-chan and sensei are teaching me. It's going pretty well, but I think it's going to get much more difficult soon. You seem to be quite a bit ahead of others your age. The man sipped on his cup as he continued, I'm impressed. Ino showed me the storage seal you made for her. That's quite advanced for someone so young. Naruto bowed his head a little in thanks. Have you been practicing fuinjutsu long? Naruto was surprised at how curious these legendary ninjas were of him. My godfather sent me a few books about fuinjutsu to read. Remembering the Hokage's words, Naruto opted to not mention his parents. He thought it could get me into a habit of reading every day, and I guess it worked. I really like fuinjutsu, but I'm only a beginner. They should teach it at the academy, Ino said, her voice, once again, calming Naruto. They don't? He asked. She shook her head, nope, not at all. She smiled at him, making him blush again, and he was sure the adults saw him. You should see how jealous people are of my seal. I'm the only one who doesn't have to drag around a huge backpack of books and supplies every day. Troublesome, whispered Shikamaru, the other boy his age, but he quickly looked away when Ino glared at him. You don't have the chakra capacity for fuinjutsu yet, added Inoichi, refilling on his cup, not to mention the advanced chakra control. It's also a dangerous practice. Any miscalculation or false ink stroke can result in disaster. He smiled at Naruto. Some people are just naturally inclined to fuinjutsu. So it's a field more offered as an alternative career path once you become genin. Emiko looked at Naruto softly. Is that something you plan to do, Naruto-chan? No, probably not, he replied politely, wiping his mouth clean. I use fuinjutsu more as a supplement to ninjutsu, so I would probably want to join the regular forces. He sat taller, looking seriously at the adults. My dream is to become Hokage, so aiming for Jonin should be my first goal. Hokage, muttered the surprisingly relaxed voice of the Shikaku, that's quite the lofty goal, Naruto. The Jonin stared at the boy, who only returned his stare. I had a couple of classmates who wanted to become Hokage, too. Even when they were your age, they wouldn't stop yapping about it. He chuckled, rubbing the back of his head. They worked day and night for it 4 years and years. If that's your goal, you'll have to do the same. His eyes lost their bemusement as he looked into Naruto's eyes. Are you willing to do that? Naruto nodded, poised and confident. Absolutely, sir. A twinkle returned to Shikaku's eyes as he smiled with a nod. Good, he muttered as he downed another drink. I'm glad there is someone like you in this new generation. He turned to his son, who was still looking bored, and rubbed the top of his head. If every kid your age acts like my lazy boy here, we're all doomed. Shikamaru grunted and shoved his father's hand away as Shikaku turned back to Naruto. I actually have some hope for the future now. Gee, thanks for your vote of confidence, Shikaku-Ajizan, muttered Ino, making the man laugh. Finally, Naruto's nerves had calmed and his smiles again came easily. The food did taste very good, and as the morning sun passed into the afternoon, the conversations flowed. Naruto did not speak much, but he was content to watch and observe. He had his fair share of family meals at home, but their topics had never been so domestic. Sure, his sister may sometimes share gossip and recipes, but they'd never spoken about grocery sales or domestic chores before. It felt different, but it was nice and warm, and Naruto felt glad to be a part of it. With every joke attempted and story told, Naruto had eaten another plate of food, and soon his stomach was bursting and he started to sweat. He hadn't realized how much he was eating, and he had actually been the last person outside of the Akimichi family to stop eating. Resisting a groan, he sat back and slumped against his crossed legs. Ino giggled at the sight of him, her lingering eyes feeling hot against his skin, and he couldn't stop that blush from burning his cheeks. He carefully wiped his mouth clean and rinsed his mouth, making sure to maintain proper etiquette. He had lost himself in the great food for a second, but the knowledge from his new books came rushing back. When in public, especially in the presence of Ino, he had to be a gentleman. Calm, poised, and collected. "You know, Naruto-chan," came the loving voice of Emiko. "Ino-chan talks about you a lot at home." That seemed to have silenced the conversations around the picnic blanket as everyone looked over at Naruto and Ino. Naruto wasn't sure why, but he glanced around and saw the three ladies sharing a sly smile before staring at him, as if expecting him to react. His three new uncles also behaved oddly, looking at him with a sort of concern or perhaps pity. "Ka-chan," cried Ino, her face burning red, "and no." "What, I'm just telling the truth," the elder Yamanaka woman answered. "I feel like I already know Naruto-chan because of how much you talk about him." Perhaps Ino's parents also requested daily mission reports from Ino? Naruto wasn't sure, but clearly he was not the only one sharing information about their newfound friendship. His new aunt was smiling, so that had to be a good sign. She was definitely not against his association with Ino. Naruto wasn't sure of all the facts, but he digressed. As long as he could spend more time with Ino, nothing else mattered. "How do you feel about it?" asked Emiko. Naruto shrugged. "I didn't know about it, but it's not all that surprising." Emiko and the other ladies looked confused by his reaction, but he returned with a smile. "I talk about Ino-chan all the time at home. I guess my family might feel like they know her, too." Thinking back to the time his siblings took to watch over his mission tapes, he nodded. "Oh yeah, they would definitely feel like they know her. They asked me about her a lot." Ino's face went even redder, and Naruto discreetly pushed a bottle of water closer to her. "Ah, really?" asked Emiko. "I've never really met anyone my age before, so Ino-chan is the first friend I've ever made." He smiled at his new aunt. "I guess my family was worried about me, so they asked me a lot of questions." He shrugged, but I was fine with it. "I'm always happy to talk about Ino-chan." "Ah," asked Emiko happily, "see, Ino? Naruto-chan talks about you all the time, too. It's completely normal." Naruto nodded. "I do," he simply said before smiling. "I was actually really excited about today, too. I only get to see Ino-chan on weekends." He smiled at Ino, who shakily looked away. "I used to not like weekends that much, but now I can't wait for them." "Oh, you're so sweet," exclaimed Emiko, Yoshino, and Shuko giggling behind her. "A boy who's not afraid to admit his feelings," added Yoshino with a proud nod. "You're a rare one, Naruto-chan." "Ugh, I guess," he replied, not really understanding. Shuko giggled at the burning Ino, but turned to Naruto. "Do you miss Ino-chan a lot during the week?" "I do," admitted the boy loudly, making Ino squeak in response. "Of course, I do. I even wondered if my Ji-chan and sensei would let me attend the academy, but I know they'd say no." He nearly pouted, making the ladies giggle again. "It'd be way more fun if we could play every day." Inochi sighed as he silently watched the scene. "No wonder Ino-chan didn't want us to come today," teased Shuko. "She wanted her alone time with Naruto-chan." Ino once again looked like a tomato. And Naruto wondered why the adults weren't concerned about her. "I feel a little sorry for being in the way." "Are you okay, Ino-chan?" asked Naruto as he looked over her turned shoulder, seeing her burning cheeks. "Is it too hot out here?" Ino shook her head before nodding her head, making Naruto even more confused and worried. "Ah, she's fine, Naruto-chan." Emiko placed a hand on her cheek, smiling happily. "You really care about Ino-chan, don't you?" "Of course, I do." Naruto wondered if he was missing something, or can the adults not see how red Ino was becoming. "She's my best friend," he muttered, looking over at Ino, frowning at her glowing face. Emiko giggled. "I'm glad she met you, Naruto-chan. You have a much better influence on her than those girls she used to play with." Naruto nodded perfunctorily, his eyes never far from the now swaying Ino. "I didn't expect her to find a boyfriend." Ino squeaked again and looked ready to pass out, which made Naruto almost panic. "Sorry, I mean a friend who is a boy." She giggled again, giddy at the scene. I think it's getting a little too hot out here. He looked up, the afternoon sun is dangerous. Yoshino giggled, why is it dangerous? I'm sure you know, but Ino-chan isn't good with heat or the sun. Naruto didn't want to overstep, but Ino needed help. I actually came prepared for this. Tapping on his forearm, he unsealed an umbrella. I knew this might be a problem, so I brought this just in case. He opened the umbrella, black and opaque, and it blocked out all the sunlight. He sat closer to Ino and held it above her. This should help with the heat, Ino-chan. Yoshino stifled a laugh as the others succumbed. I don't think there's anything wrong with Ino-chan, Naruto-chan. It's not even that hot today. Huh? Asked Naruto baffled. No, it's definitely too hot. He reached for a bottle of water and handed it to Ino, who managed to shakily take it from him. Ino-chan's face gets really red in the sun. Today is way too hot for her. It might worsen into a heat stroke. Shuko cooed at him, you are just too cute. This level of cute cluelessness is dangerous, added Yoshino, chuckling, it's definitely a killer. And Naruto-chan managed Emiko as her shoulders shook with laughter, it's definitely not a heat stroke. How can you be sure? Asked the boy, leaning over to Ino. He gently reached over and placed a hand on her forehead and it was burning hot. No, you're burning up even worse than last time, Ino-chan. You really should drink some water. Ino wasn't responding. Naruto wondered if she could even open a bottle of water in her state. He should help her, he thought, but he was holding the umbrella. Should he put the umbrella down? He could quickly open the bottle and hand it to her, but a couple of seconds in the hot sun could be very dangerous for her. Should he use a Kagebunshin? That would expose his skills too much. Why weren't they helping him? Naruto, came the voice of Shikaku, the umbrella is a good idea, but it might not be enough. Naruto's eyes widened, but listened on. Why don't you take Ino-chan over to the shade? She can cool down over there. The boy scrambled to keep the umbrella over Ino's head as he fumbled to his feet. We'll leave her in your care. Make sure she drinks plenty of water, okay? Yes, sir. Naruto threw the umbrella into the air, making it hover over Ino for a second, keeping her safe, before scooping her into his arms again. Let's go, Ino-chan. He sped off, wondering if he should release his resistance seals, but the Hokage's words flooded his mind. He had to keep his true skill secret. It would take a few seconds more, but he'd make it to the shade on time. He'd never let anything happen to his precious friend. The instant the two blonde children were out of sight, the floodgates opened. Emiko, Yoshino, and Shuko all burst into laughter, clutching their stomachs as tears fell from their eyes. Drinks were spilled, cups were knocked over, and the people around them were staring, but they didn't care. Even Shiza and Shikaku joined in with a few chuckles, shaking their heads in amusement. The only person silent and stoic was Inoichi. Well, Inoichi, said Shikaku with a grin, your worries are over. Chiza laughed, I'd say so. Yoshino leaned against her husband, still trembling in laughter. Heat stroke. Ino-chan must blush a lot around Naruto-chan, added Shuko in between breaths, he even brought an umbrella. He must think she has the worst heat tolerance in High no Kuni. Emiko shook her head with a wheeze, I've never seen Ino so red. I know you worry about Ino-chan's future, but now it's settled. There's no coming back from this one. Shikaku chuckled again, looking at Inoichi, that boy there is a natural. The perfect clueless pretty boy. Give him a few more years, and we'll be hearing wedding bells. Choji, Shikamaru, said Inoichi, breaking his silence with a smile. Why don't you boys go play in the park? You've both been patient enough. Choji grinned and nodded, sure. Let's go, Shikamaru. Troublesome, the Nara heir muttered as he stood up, okay, but this has been one weird day. He looked over in the direction Naruto and Ino disappeared before looking at his father. I think that guy might be an idiot. Shikaku shook his head, no, son. He is actually extremely gifted. He waved his son off, but don't think too much of it. This isn't the kind of talent you should worry about. I doubt you'd want it even if you could learn it. Nope, definitely not. Shoving his hands in his pockets, Shikamaru walked off. Come on, Choji. Finally. Inoichi watched as the remaining children ran off, before slouching down with a sigh. He looked in the direction his daughter was taken away, a melancholic expression on his face. He knew this was something he'd eventually had to deal with, but not so soon. He foolishly thought his daughter was still a child and he'd have his little princess until at least after she would graduate the academy. He sighed again, mourning his time lost. My little princess, he muttered, downing another drink. Emiko rolled her eyes, still smiling. Come now, dear. This is just some puppy love, there's no harm in it. She leaned into him, and Naruto-chan probably has no idea what is even happening. He's just worried about his friend. I guess so, Inoichi said with another sigh. At the very least, I much prefer her crushing on Naruto than the Uchiha boy she used to be obsessed with. Yes, this is a good thing. Emiko sighed happily, whispering her next words. If Kushina and Minato had lived, Ino and Naruto-chan would have grown up together. They're just catching up on lost time. Inoichi smiled at the thought. Yeah, that's true. Kushina would have loved this, Yoshino whispered, smiling fondly. She would have spoiled the hell out of Ino-chan just for being the only girl in the group. She chuckled. Can you imagine how much she'd love Ino if she found out about Ino's crush? She'll basically be adopted into their family within a day. She'd have the names of her future grandchildren on standby. Chiza gave a low laugh, might even start knitting some children-sized scarves. Minato would probably try and fail to calm her down, added Shikaku with a smile, then he'd probably come to us for advice. There is no way I'd ever stand in Kushina's way, answered Chiza. She was a natural disaster on her own. Shuko smiled and sighed, looking up at the clear skies. They both must be smiling down on us right now. Inoichi sighed and nodded. Yeah, they must be. He thought of Naruto, he looked so much like Minato. He chuckled, it's uncanny. He somehow managed to wipe Kushina's genes from the boy. The only thing I can see he got from her is his personality, and even then, he's like a perfect mixture of his parents. He wants to be Hokage, Yoshino whispered, just like them. The boy is talented, muttered Shikaku, downing another drink. Hokage-sama basically stated his intention to groom Naruto into the next Hokage. He's being personally trained by the best of the best, give him a few more years, and he'll be stronger than all of us. He burped and sighed. I have no doubt that Naruto will become one of the strongest of his generation, the Hokage will make sure of that. All we have to do is to make sure he grows into a balanced and decent man. Emiko nodded, I'll make sure of it. I'll take care of him like he's my own son. Yoshino smirked, good, because there's a good chance he'll be your son-in-law. I can live with that, answered Inoichi before his wife. If he's anything like his father, I know he'll treat my princess right. Emiko rested against her husband, maybe I should start knitting some scarves. Once again, Naruto and Ino returned to their quiet sanctuary, the thick canopy of their favorite oak tree. The young boy managed to shave 1 second off his previous attempt and made it to the tree in only 4 seconds. Cradling Ino in his arms, he gently sat down on one of many thick branches, resting his back against the trunk of the tree. It was once again silent and Naruto felt his body relax. It had been a fun lunch and he really enjoyed meeting his new aunts and uncles, but he loved nothing more than to be alone with Ino. Breathing a sigh of relief, Naruto lowered Ino onto his lap, still holding her close. She still felt so light and delicate that he didn't dare let her go. Her shoulders were trembling and her hands were shaking, not to mention her still burning face. She must have felt uncomfortable and he wanted nothing more than to soothe her. Is this better, Ino-chan? He whispered softly, his voice barely louder than the soft breeze that surrounded them. Do you need any water? Ino gently shook her head, and no, she whispered. Brushing his knuckles against her forehead, he sighed. You're still so hot. He gently blew on her forehead, hoping to ease her pain. I'm sorry. I should have gotten you out of there sooner. It's okay, she replied, looking down at her folded hands, still shaking. I'm starting to feel better. Following her gaze, he found her hands. With one hand on her back, keeping her close, he reached with his other for her hands. Your hands are cold, he whispered, do you feel any chills? I'm worried you might have a fever. She shuddered a breath, I'm fine, Naruto-kun. He rubbed her cold fingers with his own, holding both her hands with his own. Are you sure? Why yes. She was still trembling, and she must have been tired, because she rested her head against his shoulder. It was a bit hot out there, but it's nice and cool in here. She managed to peek up at him, briefly looking into his worried gaze. I love it in here. He smiled and nodded, I love it in here, too. They sat in silence, Naruto on the branch and Ino on his lap, her head resting on his shoulder. The soft breeze blew through the leaves around them and fluttered a soft tune, soothing them both. As he relaxed, Naruto tilted his head to the side, resting his cheek against Ino's hair. It was soft and silky and smelled of sweet flowers. He wondered if any flower could match her sweetness, probably not. Breathing in her scent, he smiled, lifting up his legs a little, tilting her closer into his chest. I think we should make this our fort, whispered Ino, rubbing her red cheek against his shoulder. What's that? He asked softly, feeling almost sleepy. He couldn't see her, but felt the curve of her smile. Make this our fort, our place. This could be where we would always meet. We never play in the park, anyway, so why not just stay here whenever we play? She giggled, I actually wanted to hide out here today. We only have the weekend for ourselves, I didn't want to share it with other people. I didn't mind it, he whispered, enjoying the serenity. Lunch was very good and your parents are great. I've never really met anyone like them before, but for someone so famous, your dad and your uncles are all very nice. Ino giggled, they really like you. He felt her hair tickle his face, smiling at the feeling. Especially my mom. I've never seen her so happy to meet my friends. I don't think she even treats Shikamaru and Choji like that. At the mention of the other boys, he added, your friends seem nice, too. I didn't get to speak to them that much, but I think I'll like them, too. They're okay, she answered with a smile, you'll have to get used to them. Shikamaru is the laziest person I've ever met. He never does his homework and always falls asleep in class. Naruto wondered if the academy was particularly laxed had he fallen asleep during his lessons. Commander Ryu would throw him in the water. Choji is a little better in class, at least he doesn't sleep. But he is always eating something. I don't know where he hides them all, but he always has a bag of chips with him. It seems fun, he added, going to the academy. If only I could attend, too. Ino nodded against his shoulder, if only. He smiled against her hair. Actually, no. Ino frowned and shook her head, I don't want Ami and the others to meet you. They get crazy whenever a cool boy joins our class. Naruto couldn't really understand, but listened on. They'd crowd around you all day, trying to fight for the seat beside you, and you would never be able to eat in peace during lunch. If I ever go to the academy, I'd only sit next to you. Naruto shrugged, I guess for lunch, we can just hide in trees. I saw a few tall and large oaks around the building, so we can make another fort there. You wouldn't want to meet other friends, she asked, glancing up at him. I guess I can meet a few more, but I doubt I'd like them more than I like you. He smiled and her face grew red again, you're my first and best friend. You're more important than anybody. Ino hid her face, tucking her head under his chin. I like you more than anybody, too. His heart was once again fluttering and he couldn't stop his smile. Even if I can't go to the academy with you, we'll still become genin at the same time. Rubbing his cheek on her hair, he continued. We're the same age and my Ji-chan told me that I'd be allowed to join the ranks when I turn 12 years old. When you graduate, I'd be there, too. Ino looked at him with a wide smile, so there's a chance we'll be on the same team? He gave a sad smile, probably not. The Ino Shikucho formation has been a tradition for decades. I doubt they'd change it this generation. She pouted, so I'm stuck with those two for the rest of my life. He chuckled as she rested her head back on his chest, we won't be teammates, but we'll probably go on some missions together. And when we become genin, we become adults, too. We can decide our own schedule and we can be together anytime we want. Ino sighed happily, just 4 more years to go. He couldn't help but wrap his arms around her, holding her closer to him. I really can't wait. Genin is just the first step, Chunin and Jonin are next. The sooner I become a Jonin, the sooner I can potentially become Hokage. She looked up at him, her chin against his chest. I have these 4 years to train as much as I can without any missions. He smiled down at her, staring into her lovely eyes. I'll become strong, Ino-chan, I promise. I will, too, she whispered. The Hokage's best friend should also be strong, right? He grinned, yep. Let's get strong together, Naruto-kun. This was all for now. Thank you for watching. I hope you liked it and that you will be back for more. Please like, share and subscribe. See ya.